I'm recording this on my phone at 3:42 a.m. The only light is the cracked screen glowing against my wet cheeks. If your thumb hovers over the pause button, don't. What I'm about to confess will live in your ribcage for days. My son Milo was 3 years, 4 months, and 11 days old when his heart forgot how to beat. He weighed 29 pounds, loved blueberry waffles cut into dinosaur shapes, and called every yellow flower a lello. His laugh sounded like wind chimes in July. And the last time my mother looked at me, she said, "He was so small, Nora. Get over it. Lila needs that money for Santorini before the venues book up." I read those words in the funeral home parking lot, engine ticking itself cool, black dress stuck to my thighs with sweat and grief. The casket I'd chosen was white, no bigger than a microwave. I'd paid extra for the velvet lining because I couldn't stand the thought of splinters. I'd also paid for 20 chairs. 0 were filled by blood. My name is Nora Vale, 31, senior associate at Hale and Harrow, downtown Portland. I bill $400 an hour turning corporate liars into confetti. For 8 years, I funneled every bonus into my family's open mouths. Dad's print shop hemorrhaged 22 grand a year. I cauterized it. Mom wanted Calicut marble. I wired 38. Lila's engagement party had a gelato cart flown in from Florence. I signed the Amex. I told myself love was a checking account with no overdraft fees. Turns out love can bankrupt you and still send the bailiffs. 3 weeks before Milo died, he spiked a fever that climbed like a stalk I couldn't short. I slept on the pediatric ward's vinyl recliner, his hot hand curled around my thumb. Night nurses learned my coffee order. Day nurses learned his favorite song, Wheels on the Bus, in dinosaur roars. On night 14, the monitors flatlined. I screamed so loud the crash cart arrived before the code team. They pumped his chest until my own stopped. At 6:18 a.m., the doctor placed his stethoscope on Milo's ribs and said the sentence that murdered me. Time of death, 6:18. I kissed the top of his head, still damp from my tears, and whispered, "Mommy's here, baby. Fly high." I texted my parents the funeral details from the hallway that smelled like antiseptic and burnt hope. 43 minutes later, Mom replied with a peach emoji and a voice note. "Sweetheart, we're tasting sea-based pairings at the Cliff House. Lila's fiancé's parents are old money. Impressions matter. Milo won't know the difference." Dad followed up with a screenshot of venue availability. June 14th books in 72 hours. That trust fund could lock the date. Lila sent a selfie, champagne flute, ocean backdrop, caption, "Manifesting the Isle of my dreams. R.I.P. little man, you'd want Auntie happy." I stared until the screen went black, then hurled the phone so hard the case shattered like my sternum. People always asked why I never said no. Because I was the mule who mistook burdens for love language. Because I grew up in a house where straight A's earned silence and Lila's C- earned a pony. Because every time I transferred money, Mom said, "You're our miracle." Miracles, it turns out, can be bled dry. Milo's trust fund started the day he was born. I seeded it with 50 grand scraped from my signing bonus, added 10 every birthday, invested in index funds that mooned. By the time he learned to say excavator, it was $872,412.19. I printed the statement every quarter, slipped it into his baby book next to his hospital bracelet. I wanted him to open it at 18 and feel the universe tilt in his favor. Instead, my family opened it at my lowest and tried to pick the lock. I drove home from the cemetery with Rafi, his stuffed giraffe, buckled into the car seat. The silence was a living thing, chewing holes in my lungs. Every red light, I expected his voice from the back. "Green means go, mama." At the apartment, I stepped over mailers for toy catalogs I'd never cancel. His rain boots, size 7, neon frogs, stood guard by the door like sentries who'd failed their only job. I poured a bowl of blueberry waffle cereal, set it on his tray, watched the milk turn purple. Then I opened my laptop and started building a wall. Gerald met me in his corner office that smelled like cedar and mercy. He'd sent a sympathy orchid the day Milo died. The card read, "For the brightest soul." I slid the trust folder across his desk like evidence in a murder trial. "Make it impossible for anyone to touch," I said. He didn't flinch. Living beneficiary deceased, sole trustee alive and furious. Got it. 3 hours later, the Milo Bright Tomorrow Foundation existed. A 501c3, with bylaws written in the blood of every check I'd ever signed. Every future dollar would chase 3 ghosts. Orphaned kids, crushed parents, cancer that steals childhoods. I initialed every page with the same Mont Blanc I'd used to pay for Lila's gelato cart. The pen snapped in half. Good. They smelled the barricade and came running. 17 missed calls by breakfast. Mom left a voicemail so syrupy it could rot teeth. Darling, think of the Instagram shots, sunset vows, hydrangeas floating in infinity pools. Milo would want his aunt radiant. Dad left 3, each louder. Your mother's blood pressure is 180/110. Do you want her stroke on your conscience? Lila left a TikTok draft, caption, grieving but glowing. Soundtrack a remix of Here Comes the Bride. I archived them all into a folder labeled receipts. Night 5 post-funeral, I came home to a crime scene dressed as a hug. Front door unlocked. Lights on. Fridge humming the lullaby I used to sing. On the counter, Milo's dinosaur pajamas folded into a perfect square. Yellow post-it in Mom's loopy cursive. We borrowed Raffi for comfort. Call before we call the lawyers. They'd taken his giraffe. I sank to the linoleum and screamed until the neighbors banged the walls. Then I changed every lock, installed Ring cameras, and slept with a kitchen knife under the pillow like a child afraid of monsters who shared my DNA. Work became my monastery. I billed 200 hours in 14 days, one emotion that made Law 360. And still heard Milo's voice every time the elevator dinged. My boss, Patricia, 5'2" of steel magnolia, cornered me in the copy room. You're a ghost in heels, Nora. HR says your family's calling from payphones. Talk to me. I vomited the whole timeline between paper jams. When I finished, she hugged me so hard my ribs sang. Document every breath they take. Then bury them in daylight. I did. I built a war binder thicker than the Portland phone book. Screenshots time-stamped to the second. Voicemails transcribed by a court reporter. A 4K video of Dad pacing my hallway yelling, "You owe us for 18 years of orthodontia." I emailed it to myself, to Patricia, to Gerald, to a Gmail account named Milo Bright Tomorrow. Insurance against the day they'd claim I was crazy. They escalated the way sinking ships take on water, fast, loud, desperate. Week 3 they showed up at 2 a.m. Mom in curlers, Dad clutching a manila envelope like a grenade. Lila live streaming on Instagram, confronting my toxic sister for family values. I watched through the peephole while dialing 911. Dad slid the envelope under the door. Inside, a fake invoice for wedding consultancy addressed to the foundation. Total $872,412.19. I laughed so hard I peed. The cops arrived, cited them for trespass. And I added the body cam footage to the binder. Week 4, Lila's fiance's mother, Claire, invited me to high tea at the Heathman. Claire wore pearls and pity. Jessica told us your parents are philanthropists. Something about a children's hospital wing. I slid my phone across the linen tablecloth. Screenshot, Mom's text the hour Milo died. Claire aged 10 years in 10 seconds. The wedding planner was fired by sunset. Santorini turned into a courthouse elopement neither family attended. Week 5, Dad's bank froze his accounts after an anonymous tip about creative bookkeeping. Mom was quietly voted off the Rose Festival board. Lila's influencer sponsorships dried up when brands Googled her name. I didn't lift a finger. Gravity did the work. But gravity has a sense of humor. Month 2, Mom went nuclear. She created a Justice for Grandparents, blue check verified in 12 hours. Posts, throwback photos of infant Milo captioned. Taken from us by a greedy daughter. Local news ate it raw. Suddenly, I was the villain who'd robbed orphans to buy Louboutins. Strangers screamed monster outside Whole Foods. Someone keyed baby killer into my driver's side door. I stopped leaving the apartment. Olivia, law school friend turned crisis PR ninja, stormed in with lattes and a battle plan. Truth is a scalpel, Nora. We're doing surgery on camera. We spent 72 hours building a website. milosbrighttomorrow.org. Every text, every voicemail, every frame of security footage uploaded in chronological order. We watermarked nothing. We invited downloads. We titled the landing page, "The day they chose cake over a casket." Traffic crashed the server in 4 minutes. By morning, hashtag Milo's Truth trended above Taylor Swift. The backlash was biblical. Mom's follower count hemorrhaged. Dad's last client faxed a termination letter. Lila deleted every account and dyed her hair mousy brown. A GoFundMe for the foundation hit $100,000 in 6 hours. I read the donor notes curled on Milo's bedroom floor. Rafi back in my arms, smelling like home. One message stopped my heart. My daughter died at 3. I thought I was alone. Thank you for proving love can outrun death. I cried so hard the giraffe's neck went stiff with salt. 6 months post-funeral, I stood on the Hilton ballroom stage in the same black dress, now 2 sizes too big. Behind me, a check the size of a billboard, $1.2 million from viewers who'd watched my pain and decided to turn it into oxygen. I didn't read the speech I'd rehearsed. I looked straight into the camera and spoke to every parent who'd ever buried a future. Milo never learned to ride a bike. He never lost a tooth. He never asked why the sky was blue. But tonight his heartbeat funds 32 scholarships, wipes out 41 hospital liens, and buys a mobile ICU for OHSU's tiniest warriors. His 3 years will save hundreds. That is what forever looks like. The room erupted. I floated off stage on applause and strangers' tears. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered because some wounds like to rip themselves open. Mom's voice, paper thin. "We're being evicted. The motel wants cash up front. Your father sleeps in the car. Please, Nora." He was our grandson too. I heard Dad coughing in the background. Lila whispering, "Tell her we're sorry." I pressed the phone so hard the screen spiderwebbed. "Say his name," I said. Silence. "Say Milo." A sob, then nothing. I ended the call, blocked the number, and donated another 50 grand in their names. Let the tax receipt be their apology. 8 months later, I moved to a loft with windows big enough to let sunrise bleed across the hardwood. Milo's room travels in cedar boxes labeled in his crayon scrawl. I visit his grave every Sunday with fresh lelos. I read him donor letters aloud. Last week, a little girl named Amaya, bone cancer survivor, age 4, sent a video blowing kisses. "Thank you, Milo's mom. I get to start kindergarten because of your brave boy." I played it on loop until the battery died. Some nights I still wake reaching for his warm weight. Some mornings I still pour 2 bowls of waffle cereal. But the hollow has edges now. And inside those edges grow children who will never know hunger or hospital bankruptcy. That is vengeance soft enough to sleep with. I kept one thing from the old life. The broken Mont Blanc. I glued the nib back crooked, filled it with indigo ink, and signed every foundation check with it. Every swirl is a reminder. Love can be a weapon, but only if you aim it forward. So here's my question, whispered to you across the dark. If the people who taught you family turned your grief into a price tag, would you burn the ledger? Or rewrite it in brighter blood? Comment your answer. Every reply buys another night in a hospital bed for a kid who still has tomorrows. Milo is listening. His lelos are blooming. And for the first time since the monitors went silent, so am I. Turn on notifications. The story isn't over. It's just learning how to fly.